Translation, everyone. So, today my message is titled, The Flight Attendant of Your Soul. And I thought about this topic for a while because I had the title, but I really wasn't getting the message. You know, it just wasn't coming through. But what made me think about the title was the motion that I make with my hands every week when I say the prayer chaplains will be in the corners to pray one-on-one with you. And I just kept thinking there's a message there for me when I do that flight attendant thing, you know, the exits or, yeah. But, there we go. Anyway, but today what I want to say is please stay in your seats and see until you see the unbuckle your seatbelt sign. And don't forget to put your oxygen mask on first before you assist anybody else. And yes, the prayer chaplains will be in the corners after service to pray one-on-one with you. But let us first affirm our statements of truth together, please. I am a child of God. I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now. Thank you. So what does it mean to be the flight attendant of your soul? Well, we know what a pilot does, right? The pilot keeps the plane sailing through the sky and flies us wherever we're our next destination. And I know you've heard the saying, who's your co-pilot? And a lot of people will say, Jesus. And in Unity, we say we are the co-pilot because we know that God is our pilot and that we are co-creating with God. So in true essence, we both are co-pilots together in this journey, and that expresses through the Christ within us. But the flight attendant, how does that mix in, you know? The primary role of the flight attendant is to ensure passenger safety, correct? And even though this is so important, we tend to think of the flight attendant as the one who brings us beverages and pretzels. You know, movies tend to show the flight attendant strolling, just like that picture, strolling through the airport with their bags, looking all prim and proper, right? Yeah, then that's the image we have when we hear the word flight attendant, or what we used to call stewardesses. But you see, the duties of a flight attendant are just as strenuous as the pilot. In fact, they go to the meetings with the pilot to have the flight safety briefing, the weather reports, and to hear about any kind of conditions that might happen during the flight or things that they're suspecting might happen. And then they have to be on guard throughout the whole flight for smells and sounds and any passengers that might seem, you know, dangerous or like they're not, you know, acting properly or any of that kind of stuff. So their job is very important. But the question then becomes, what does that have to do with us and our soul? Well, we have to be willing to face every situation with safety in mind, don't we? And we need to be on guard to pay attention to what we think or how we act. And we have to look at every situation and be able to assess what is good for us and what is dangerous, right? And that has to do with choices. But it also has to do with the power of judgment. And that is very important. From Luke 6, verse 37 through 38, we can look at these quotes. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap, for the measure you give will be the measure you get back. So judgment from personality can be shrewd or picky or racist or sexist, and it's always finding fault when we come from that personality or ego. And it can be somebody that can never make a decision. Don't those people kind of get on your nerves sometimes? You say, where do you want to go? I don't care, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to a movie? What movie do you want to go to? I don't care, what do you want to do? You know, it's always like they can't decide anything. Do you like this or not? Well, I don't know if I like it or not. Do you like it? You know, that kind of stuff. But it can drive you crazy, and that's coming from your personality or your ego. But the power of judgment from the Christ is used in a sense of discerning what is the highest good, meaning having wisdom to do your best and be your best. And that can be a struggle for us sometimes because how do we always know that it's going to be for our best or be for our highest good? And how can we engage that power of wisdom to take us to that level to make the right choice, you know, so that we aren't going to that place of personality or judgment? And we have to figure out how this works within us. Because sometimes there could be some embedded theology or terminology that might obstruct the natural flow of the power of judgment. And we need to probably start with the concept of the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, or also known as mind idea expression. So thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, mind, idea, and expression. And then we've got God, Christ, and the energy moving through us. And we also have the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is what some of that embedded theology or terminology has been called. But we're going to start with the capital M, mind, first, which means God. If you see the thing next to it says God. Although we might have been taught at some point in time that the capital M, mind, is Father, but we might be thinking that we've been taught that Father is this term for an authoritative being who commands or rules over us. And thinking that the Father, or in other words, God, that's why I don't like the term Father sometimes, because that automatically can trigger stuff in your subconsciousness. But to think of God as an authoritative, commanding, or ruling over us is missing the mark or error thinking. We might have been told or taught this, but truth is that God is the energy of only good and only wants good for us. So God cannot be in that place of being authoritative or judging over us. God has given us free will to express as we choose. With this gift, we can easily shift our thinking to align with God as capital M, mind. And that's the whole idea of that energy of God moving through us, is to take the idea that we are getting from mind and express it as the energy of God moving through us, staying in alignment with that. And we can easily do that when we are reminded of the omnipotence of God, of the omniscience of God. And those things are the all-knowing and the all-powerful and the everywhere present. Because if those things exist as God and we claim them as God in our statement of being, then guess what? They exist within us, right? They exist within us because we are that flow of energy of God's ideas coming through us. Now, the error thinking that we get could be possibly from the wrong idea. Once we have it into our head, we could have embedded thinking that all our ideas are not true or good. You might have been told when you were a kid that, oh, that's a dumb idea, or that's stupid, or gosh, why would you think that? And you start hearing those words, and guess what? You think everything that comes out of your mouth is dumb or stupid or not right. And you get to the point where you get to that place of not being able to make a decision, correct? Okay. Because you're afraid to make a decision. Because if you make a decision, it might be the wrong one, right? And when you get in that mode and stuff, it's hard to know what a good idea is or what a true idea is. But the truth is that every single idea is from divine mind and comes to us through the Christ within us. And the thing about that is that once we get that divine idea from God, it comes straight from God, it's perfect, it's going to bring the highest good, it is going to be the highest good. And as long as we do not let that embedded terminology or theology or what your culture or whatever it was you were brought up with interfere, it's going to stay in that divine mode and it's going to express for our highest good. The problem is that we get into that personality or that ego, and then that capital I idea turns into a small I idea and becomes all about our idea, you know? And we make it all about how we think and what we're thinking. And you know, writing this message, I even got to the point where I felt like, gosh, I need to quit saying, oh, I have this great idea. No, because if I have a great idea, guess where it came from? I mean, it's God's idea. So it's almost like I feel like, oh man, God gave me this great idea. Change my terminology to embrace that which is truth. You know, and if I keep affirming that, then what's going to happen? It's going to come into expression as that, isn't it? Instead of claiming it as my idea and start making it about personality and ego right off the bat. Yeah, so we have to change that. The other thing is about the capital idea is if we are coming from the Christ, then that idea is going to stay capital I idea. It's going to stay a divine idea if we are centered on the Christ. So the minute we start thinking it's about us, and we start thinking it's about the power of us, and aren't we brilliant, then we need to center back on the Christ and get the ego back in check.
That's right.
And say, hey, this is a divine idea, and what is that divine idea? How is that supposed to express in my life? How can it bring me forth with the highest good? And that's using the power of wisdom as the power of judgment, because they're both the same thing. And again, remember that once we put it into expression, we're using that energy of God. And if you think about that it's the energy of God moving through you, it's a whole different thing, isn't it? I mean, just thinking about the idea that even the words that come out are the expression of God, it makes you think about what you say or what you're expressing. Now, some of you might have been told that Jesus was the only Son of God. You know, here we got God, Father, okay? And, you know, I was told that when I was a kid, that Jesus was the only Son of God. And that Jesus was the only one who could do what he did. That we are so blessed because Jesus came to save our, fill in the blanks, somebody? Sins. Yes, save our sins. But in unity we know this isn't true. You see, the manipulation of the Bible and Jesus' teachings has got to be brought to the forefront of our minds. And most importantly, to our souls, or to that Christ expression. Because we are just as important to God as Jesus was and is, aren't we?
Yes.
Aren't we just as important?
Yes. Yes.
And we can say that we are children of God too. And if we're children of God, which we say on our statements of truth, then guess what? We're sons and daughters too, aren't we?
Yes.
He's not the only begotten Son. And we too can express these ideas from the Christ within. And at this point, I know that we can no longer be thinking that the Holy Spirit right here is that little dove flying around with a branch in his mouth, you know, being angelic like an angel's wings. No, the Holy Spirit is not that. The Holy Spirit is the expression of the energy of God in us expressing in the world.
Yes.
Now, we can all fly around with our angel wings and be that, but, you know, that's not the way that it is. But that's what I was taught too. You know, when I saw that little dove, that's the Spirit of God. And not to burst any more bubbles, but I'm going to. I just want to also tell you that the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit are not three different things. They're not three different people or beings or gods or whatever you want to call it. No, the whole idea is they are as one as we are.
Yes.
It's all of us in the oneness of God. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Does everybody get that?
Yes.
Yeah, because when we start separating those, guess what? I just said it. We become separate, don't we?
Yes.
We no longer think of God moving in and through us, and we don't live from that place. We think God's out there being that Father that's going to judge us and say whether we've been doing good or bad. You know, and how many people ever cared if their father thought you were doing good or bad? You did it anyway, right? I'm not talking about God, I'm talking about your dads. People did that, you know? But anyway, but what if this whole idea of you know, religious ethics or whatever you want to call it, theology that people are teaching, what if it was just all misconstrued? You see, Bible scholars and educators of the Bible, they know that stuff isn't true. They know that Jesus wasn't the only one. They know there was other people out there doing miracles even in Jesus' day. There was other people healing and performing, you know, resurrections or whatever. There were other people doing it. And we can do it too. These were examples for us to do. But what if all of that religions have been teaching us over the years or been controlling us with over the years, that, you know, we have to listen to God as being the ultimate being, and that Jesus is, you know, we have to go through Jesus and not look at the Christ within us as the expression of God. What if all of that stuff was a divine idea that has just gone astray? You know? Because that's probably what it was. What if the whole idea behind all of this nonsense is a divine idea which has gone astray the divine idea of oneness. You see, the divine idea from God is pure and perfect and absolute good. We know this, right? The divine idea is that way, and it's up to us to how we express it. So, the divine idea is in the ethers, floating out there of the oneness of God. And Pastor Smith comes along, and Pastor Smith receives the divine idea of oneness and says, wow, by golly, I've got to go out there and start teaching to everybody, preaching to everybody, and get everybody to thinking just like I think. Because I know I got the divine idea, and they have to think just like me, because someday we're going to be one with God when we die, and I've got to go out and teach that. He received that divine idea. Now, Pastor Smith doesn't realize that that's out there in the ethers for all of us to grasp. That the divine idea of oneness is out there for all of us. And so guess what? I come along, and I receive the divine idea. And I say, hey, let's all live as one. And I'm thinking, wow, this kind of sounds fantastic, except how do I do that? So I pray and I meditate about it, and I think, wow, the golden rule is a pretty good place to start. Maybe if we just start living from that place of the golden rule, a lot of things will change. And we could start with that so that we get to that place of oneness with God. Well, we both had a divine idea of oneness, but we had different approaches, didn't we? And unfortunately, sometimes it feels like there's more Pastor Smiths out there than there are Reverend Francie's. But hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. But at this point, I realized that it is not my job to judge what they think or how they think they are getting to heaven. Because guess what? I am the flight attendant of my soul, and I am in charge of whom? Me, that's right. And you are in charge of you. That's right. And if we look at that, that changes everything. Because we realize that if we do not judge or condemn or do any of those things, then guess who we're going to focus in on? Ourselves, right? And if we stay focused on that divine idea, we're never going to judge or condemn or go to that place at all. So let's look at the rest of the first part of this Bible quote. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. And give, and it will be given to you. Do you see how important it is to use the power of judgment in a way that can be beneficial instead of harmful to us and others? Because, let's say this. We can judge everything. We can be negative and live in misery and come from ignorance and threaten others to believe the way we do because we think we are the righteous ones, right? Or we can live from righteousness, which means right thinking. That's what righteousness means. And we can accept and forgive and receive all that we need to live from that abundant source of God. And aligning with God, there is no way that we could ever, and we will never, live in the negative. It's impossible. Because if we are aligning with our one source, with God, then we can only focus in on good. That's the only choice we have. And that's the choices we'll make. It's kind of like this black piece of paper right here. It just looks like a black piece of paper, doesn't it? And the thing is that it can represent hate, it can represent negativity, vengefulness, or any aspect that's not truth. And the minute we start changing our thinking, guess what happens? Beautiful things start coming forth. And we can just peel off all of those layers and come up with a beautiful piece of art. And it's that easy. That's all we have to do. Allow that light of God to come shining through. And let us not forget the rest of the quote that says, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put back into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. And we sing a version of this every Sunday, don't we? And it's very fun, and it's a truthful song. And the words for that song are give. You want to sing it for me, Jess? Give.
God gives it back to you. Good measure, pressed down, shake it together, give. God gives it back to you. God gives it back to you. God gives it back to you.
Yes, thank you. I threw that one in on him. Isn't he good? I meant to tell him before service, but it was too crazy. But do you believe these words, though? When you sing them every week, you really get the energy into them. And do you believe them? Do they resonate with your soul? And are you being guided by Spirit to do anything when you sing that? Well, yes, maybe. I mean, a lot of people are guided to give, but what are you guided to give, you might ask? Because when we sing this, we're singing it over the offering, aren't we? And it's all focused on the money. It's all focused on what we give and what we receive in those dollar bills. But if we open that up to knowing in our consciousness that it is more than just the money, because even in the idea of giving the money, which I still want you to do, Reverend Wood will be up here changing my message in a minute. I'm just teasing. Russell will be. He's the new treasurer. Anyway, but it also opens you up to be able to receive what all is out there for you, the highest good that is out there for us. And we start seeing it more and more every day when we open up to that simple song, that simple idea that is based on a Bible quote. And how does that work when we know that, I mean, we already know that God gives us everything, right? Right. Well, are you getting everything? I mean, are you what you don't get? Do you not get everything you need in life? That statement's a little bit off. You do? You receive everything that you want? No. I mean, some people need to be honest here, because I know some people are crying about not getting everything. Everything they want. Do you get everything you want? Yeah, well, it changes to need. But a lot of people really aren't getting what they want. And some people say, well, does it mean that the Spirit of God, or that Spirit of God is not working in and through us, let alone the law of mind action? Because we know that the law of mind action is what? Thoughts held in mind, produced after their kind. So if you're holding lack, you're going to have lack. If you're holding abundance, you're going to have abundance, right? And if you're coming from that place of the Christ within, then it's going to come forth, right? Because all of this really does work. It really does. But we have to live from that place, and we have to be in that place. So are we spending too much of our time living in personality, living from the ego sense? And I'm talking about the ego over here, not the ego centered on the Christ. I'm talking about personality, that negative sense that can be overbearing. We all have personalities, but if you know what I'm talking about. But we have to be the ones who take the divine idea of abundance and receive it as truth and know that we are good enough, that we have enough, that we are rich enough, and that we're lucky enough. Because all those things can change our mind. You know, I used to always say, so-and-so is lucky all the time. What I'm doing is taking, in my mind, I'm taking away the luck from myself, because it's like that person has all the luck. That's not true. We have to know that we have just as much luck as the next person, just as much riches as the next person, and so on. And when we remember this, we don't end up looking like Pastor Smith, where we've taken a divine idea and misconstrued it into what we think everybody should be doing. We are no longer judging or condemning. We are coming from that Christ within and coming from that place that we know we need to be. There's a ministerial student who did a chapel service at the last LNO we went to, the License Ordination Test, and she said, her name's Dinah Chapman, and she said, push beyond staying small. Isn't that cool? Push beyond staying small. Because when we receive that divine idea, sometimes we think, oh, that's really cool. That would be so neat. But I don't have the money. I don't have the time. Oh, I don't know if I can do that. And what happens is we put it off aside, don't we? Instead of following through with it. You know, and when we do follow through with it, we're pushing beyond staying small. we're pushing into a new place. And if we help each other push beyond staying small, it can be very beneficial. Shirley's daughter wrote a book, and I don't know how long ago she wrote it, but she was at one of our services, and she said, "Oh, I've got to show you my book." And I said, "Okay," because it was about supporting each other. And she brought it in, and it's a perfect little book. It's called The Story of Needy, and it's a Egyptian girl. And it's a story about faith and community, but it's also about the earth, Mother Earth, and nurturing it. So I thought, wow, that could be powerful for a faith and community, multi-generational thing, but it also could be great for Earth Day. Well, you know, after I looked at it and everything, I told Shirley, I said, "You've got to tell her to call me or email me." So we talked, and I sent her, it just poured out of me, a lesson for the kids on Earth Day, and they're going to use it next week. And if you want a cute, powerful little book, and I think it's $9.95 for the book, and beautiful drawings in there. But the kids are going to use it next week, and it's a great book to share with grandkids or family or even your own kids, whatever. But it is about staying in that idea of pushing beyond being small, because me just giving her some ideas and her sharing it with me, first off, her sharing it with me is pushing beyond being small, isn't it?
Yes.
Because she had it published and everything.
Yes.
But she was sitting there with the books at home doing nothing with it. So me talking to her and me getting energized about it and me sharing how I thought it was powerful, let her push beyond being small, and I gave her some ideas. Not my ideas, God's ideas, you know, and she's all excited now, and she's getting ideas, and that's how it works. So we can help each other push beyond staying small, so that we give of ourselves so that we can receive. You know, and I know this is going to be a powerful thing. I know it'll be something that she can share with other people, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to help each other push beyond being small, because there's a plethora of mighty things out there for us to all do. And how many people have seen an infomercial and said, "Oh, I had that idea 2 years ago and never did anything with it"? I mean, that you could be making the millions. That one gal on QVC that's on Shark Tank, I mean, what does she have? Over 100 patents. And, you know, because she's taking those ideas and she's putting them into play. And I'm thinking we all could have hundreds of patents and be billionaires. You know, it's about pushing beyond staying small. And when we do this, then we are staying in alignment and in that safety of God, aren't we? Where we know that God is moving with us on this journey. And the power of judgment stays balanced in the Christ. And when we take back our power from that embedded theology or that negative thinking that we have heard in the past, we will know that the law of mind action truly works, that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, and we'll see the benefits in our everyday life. And when we do that, then we will know that we may unbuckle our seatbelts and freely move around life, which ultimately will allow us to be the flight attendant of our soul. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Francie. For the special music today, we're going to do a song by our good friend Jennifer Farron. Some of you may know her. She's one of the leading artists in the posse music movement. And she will be performing here on Mother's Day, along with her drummer, who happens to be Mindy and my daughter, Jana. She plays on this record with her, and I think I'm on a cut or two. When Mindy and I and the kids first walked into a Unity church in 1995, we heard Jennifer Farron singing on Release and I Let Go, and we were hooked. So I'm going to do her song. Mindy suggested this song when she heard the topic and said this would be perfect, and I happen to agree. It's called I'm Creating My Highest Good. This features our good friend Mark on lead guitar.